Mahathir Mohamad is undeniably Malaysia's most renowned prime minister, having served as a politician for over 75 years and holding the position of prime minister for a cumulative total of over 24 years. As one of the most influential figures in Malaysia's history, he has received both praise for his reformative initiatives and criticism for his policies. Naturally, the life of a politician is fraught with opposition. Our focus today, however, is not on the specifics of his actions, but rather on how Malaysia's economy has fared under his leadership. Assessing the country's economic performance is arguably the most crucial aspect in evaluating his policies and overall impact on Malaysia. In this examination, we will concentrate on key macroeconomic indicators such as gross domestic product, employment rate, and inflation, among others. By doing so, we can gain a clearer understanding of Mahathir Mohamad's legacy and its effects on the Malaysian economy. To begin with, the most crucial economic indicator is the gross domestic product, GDP, which provides a snapshot of a country's economy, estimating its size and growth rate. Examining Malaysia's GDP performance under Mahathir's leadership offers insight into the nation's overall economic growth. We will first focus on his lengthy tenure from 1981 to 2003. Data from the World Bank reveals that Malaysia's GDP in 1981 has $25 billion, a relatively low figure compared to its Southeast Asian neighbors such as the Philippines, $40.5 billion, and Thailand, $34.8 billion. This indicates that Malaysia's economy was lagging behind these two countries. However, limitations in the dataset will be discussed later. By 2003, Malaysia's GDP had grown to over $110 billion, surpassing the Philippines and closing the gap with Thailand, which had an estimated GDP of $152 billion. This represents an average annual GDP growth of about 6.2%, a fairly typical figure for developing countries, which often experience growth rates between 5 and 7%. A notable exception is Singapore under Lee Kuan Yew, who achieved an annual GDP growth rate of more than 8% during his time in office. GDP per capita, another vital indicator, measures a country's output divided by its population, providing insights into the economic well-being of standard living. In 1981, Malaysia's GDP per capita was estimated at $1,814, higher than both Thailand and the Philippines. By 2003, Malaysia's GDP per capita had grown to over $4,454, representing significant progress as compared to its neighbors. Undoubtedly, the aforementioned GDP figures are influenced by various policies implemented under Mahathir's watch. Factors such as the Look East policy, the New Economic Policy, and Vision 2020, which redirected government spending across industries, played a significant role in shaping Malaysia's economic growth. Mahathir's decision to establish Proton and Peruda in favor of other industries also had an impact. However, it is challenging to determine the exact extent to which these policies affected the country's overall economic growth. Some critics argue that Malaysia's industrial performance under Mahathir failed to emulate the strategies of East Asian nations, but the critical measure is the growth Malaysia experienced during his tenure. Another indicator that reflects Mahathir's contributions is unemployment, which provides insights into the effectiveness of his policies in addressing unproductive sectors of the economy. International Labor Organization data reveals that the average unemployment rate in Malaysia between 1982 and 2002 was around 4.4%. This figure is relatively favorable when compared to the 2019 averages for developed countries, 4.8%, and developing countries, 5.4%. Additionally, World Bank data from 1980 to 2000 indicates that the unemployment rate for developed countries was about 6.7%, while it was approximately 7.5% for developing countries. Comparing both modern and historical data demonstrates Malaysia's impressive performance under Mahathir's leadership. This is a testament to the efficiency of the labor force and the numerous initiatives implemented during his time in office. Thirdly, inflation serves as another valuable indicator, shedding light on Malaysia's economic landscape under Mahathir's leadership. Inflation reflects purchasing power, and as it increases, the value of money decreases. It also offers insight into the effectiveness of various fiscal and monetary policies implemented in Malaysia. High inflation may suggest that government policies are inadequate in controlling prices or managing the economy, leading to eroded public confidence and stability. World Bank data from 1981 to 2003 indicates that the average inflation rate in Malaysia was 3.1%, which aligns with the global average. In other words, Malaysia's inflation under Mahathir's leadership was on par with worldwide trends. These three major macroeconomic indicators provide a positive outlook on Malaysia's performance during Mahathir's tenure. They demonstrate that the country grew in line with global standards and that Malaysia's macroeconomy remained stable under his leadership. However, it is essential to acknowledge the limitations of this dataset, which does not account for factors such as income inequality, corruption, underemployment, or unemployment. To dig deeper, let us then understand the factors that are left out of Mahathir's macroeconomy. Starting with inequality, which is crucial to assess the distribution of wealth and income during Mahathir's tenure, wealth inequality was pervasive under Mahathir's rule, as many critics cited. These are largely connected to crony capitalism and favoritism. Many critics stated that while the new economic policy aimed to uplift the Bumiputera community, critics argue that it primarily benefited a small group of well-connected individuals. This policy led to a growing wealth gap with the Bumiputera community and contributed to overall income inequality in Malaysia. Furthermore, during Mahathir's tenure, several key public assets such as utilities and infrastructure were privatized and sold to well-connected business people. This privatization process was criticized for a lack of transparency and for benefiting a select few at the expense of the broader population. And finally, Mahathir's administration was known to favor companies with close ties to the government, often providing them with lucrative contracts, licenses, and financial support. Critics argue that this approach led to an uneven playing field, where well-connected companies flourished at the expense of smaller businesses. Aside from wealth inequality, Mahathir was also criticized for a lack of oversight that led to large scandals in Malaysia. In the 1990s, the state-owned Perwaha Steel Company faced allegations of corruption and financial mismanagement. The company accumulated losses of over 10 billion Malaysian ringgit, and it was eventually revealed that funds were misused or misappropriated, resulting in a major scandal. Although Mahathir was not directly implicated, critics argue that the lack of proper oversight and transparency during his administration contributed to the issue. Another key scandal was in the early 1990s, as Bank Negara Malaysia, BNM, the country's central bank, suffered significant losses due to the speculative forex trading. It is estimated that BNM lost up to 30 billion Malaysian ringgit, making it one of the biggest financial scandals in Malaysian history. Critics have pointed to Mahathir's administration for failing to adequately monitor and regulate the central bank's activities. The most heated debate that many looked towards Mahathir for was the Look East policy. Mahathir, who enacted the policy during his first term, aimed to learn from and emulate the success of East Asian countries, particularly Japan and South Korea. Although the policy had some positive outcomes, it faced several challenges and ultimately fell short of achieving its goals. One of the most prominent examples of industrialization under the Look East policy was the establishment of the National Car Project, Proton, in 1983. This project aimed to develop Malaysia's automotive industry by partnering with Japan's Mitsubishi Motors Corporation. Initially, Proton experienced moderate success, achieving high market share in Malaysia due to protective tariffs and other government-supportive measures. However, over time, Proton struggled to maintain its competitiveness both domestically and internationally. The company faced issues with product quality, technological innovation, and cost efficiency, which were compounded by the lack of strong domestic automotive supplier base. Ultimately, Proton's inability to develop a strong global presence or become a self-sustaining and competitive automaker highlights the limitations of the Look East policy's focus on heavy industries. Another aspect of the Look East policy was the pursuit of heavy industries such as steel, aluminum, and petrochemicals in the states of Pahang and Terengganu. These projects aim to create jobs, develop local infrastructures, and promote economic growth. However, the heavy industries faced several challenges, including high capital and energy costs, technological deficiencies, and limited access to raw materials. Moreover, these projects were often criticized for their negative environmental impacts, such as deforestation and pollution, which raised concerns about their long-term sustainability. Ultimately, these heavy industry projects failed to generate the economic benefits envisioned under the Look East policy. Nevertheless, while Mahathir had indeed seen his fair share of scandals and failed moments, he has still stood to become a leader that uplifted several key areas in Malaysia, which are evident in the country's gross domestic product and other indicators. But anyway, do let us know what you think down in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.